question for everyone today is, who is on your team? And as I think about my experience growing up, I think about a range of experiences. Every time I speak, I think, oh gosh, there's so many stories. I didn't realize the stories that I have. And you have a set of stories and experiences too. And one particular story I think about, I just remember as a child growing up in a small town, Mississippi, and I mean, lots of land to play on. I mean, we had a pond. I mean, we had so much property. It's like there were different spots that my sisters and I, and then my little brother, we had our favorite spots. And I mean, it was just such a wonderful experience. I mean, just using our imagination to go outside. I didn't realize how broke we were, you know, it's like, that's why we had so much room to imagine and play, because I mean, we didn't have all the other, you know, bells and whistles, but we didn't realize that until much later. But I just remember so much time, just spending a lot of time outdoors, making up stories. My sisters would write stories, and it was just such a phenomenal experience. I just remember so much joy, just getting out there with nature, lots of pets. I've had a pet raccoon, I've had a pet duck. I mean, I've had all kinds of pets. It's out of control. And so it was just such a joy. I just remember such laughter. And then I just remember also, you know, this one experience where things changed for me. I remember one day watching my father beat my mother on our front lawn, and things just shifted. And I just remember in that moment being very still. I just felt paralyzed watching, because I'm a little child and I felt so helpless that I couldn't do anything. And I remember the argument, and my mother wanted to see her mother who was barely sick. She was getting ready to pass away. And she just like, if I could just catch a bus to see her. And my dad didn't want her to do that. He was scared that she was going to leave him. And so that was the argument, that was the fight. And I remember watching all of this money just flying around in our front yard. And I just stood there and I couldn't do anything. And I sat there with her. It was a Friday night. And I was sitting there with her all throughout the night. I don't remember, I didn't even go to sleep. And I just sat next to her, and she was in so much pain and crying. And from that moment on, as a little child, I felt so determined that I had to do something, that I had to protect her. I needed to do something different. And from that point on, there were these memories. There was still the stories that my sisters and I would tell. There was running outside and playing and walks in the woods, but there was also a realization of a different experience that I was having in my family. And throughout that time of my childhood, you know, I watched as things would just begin to I would say, to deteriorate. You know, I watched my mom, who was in such a controlling situation, who didn't even know how to drive. And I remember her fighting just to learn how to drive. And I remember being so excited for her that she learned how to drive. And I remember also that if I was going to have a different trajectory for my life, then I needed to do something different. And I don't wish that upon any child, that you need to start making life plans when you're in elementary school to that degree. But I knew that it had to be something different because of the way my father was managing money, and college and those things weren't spoken to me, but I knew about it from going to school. And I loved school. And I knew if there was some way that I would be in a different situation, that I could change things, then that would be a pathway for me. And I knew that there was something about scholarships, like there was something that I could be able to do. It's like, okay, I may not be the sharpest tool in the toolbox and the best cookie in the cookie box. Is there such thing as a cookie box? I think about Girl Scout cookies, sorry. I just donated some from a friend, but anyway. May not be the best one, but I'm like, if I can take what's under this furrow and put it to work, then I may be able to finance my education. So I just went for it. I applied myself, and dealing with so much trauma and drama at home. I just remember staying up late at night, and I would just hear arguing. And I just remember I would cry and I would wipe tears away and I would study. And I mean, I just was elementary, middle school, high school. I mean, I was doing all-nighters way before college because I just knew I had to do something different to get out of the situation. And so when I did finally get scholarships, like to me, it was like, oh, thought like it was such a big thing. Like I didn't care if people called me nerd and all those things. Like they didn't know my life and what I was experiencing. For me, I just saw there was some way out. And so for me, from someone who, you know, who had family that didn't push me to go to college, and at times there were efforts to, I mean, that's a different story where there was challenges even being able to stay in college and hold on to what I had, that was such a pathway for me, that I was able to, that there were schools and that there were programs available that, you know, if you work hard and apply yourself, that you can apply for certain types of funding, and that can help you to get a way out if you didn't have parents that pay for your education. And so that was such a deal break. That was such a big breakthrough for me for my undergrad, that I was able to fund my college education. And I stress the money, the grants, scholarships, you name it, is like, you know, and then even working just so that I can be able to, you know, be the first person in my family to not only finish college, but then continue to get my PhD. And then, you know, when I went to get my master's degree, you know, I was able to fund that. Now that funding, you know, I got a full ride, but that fellowship required me to go to school full time. Well, again, you know my background. I don't think, you know, mom and dad had some money plugged away for grad school. So even with that, you know, I was working full time and going to school full time. And so I think that was a blur. I don't remember much from that time because when I left work, I went right into school, and that was full time. So it was just all work and school, but it was worth it. And then with my PhD as well, most of that was funded. From that point, I knew like if I was ever going to do any kind of loans, it would be once I got my PhD, and I would manage how much I'm willing to take on, you know, based on, you know, salary and those things. So I planned so that I wouldn't be accumulating debt from undergrad on, right? I was just thinking like, I'm not going to be, you know, a slave to debt just from schooling. And so that plan, that you know, that panned out. You know, it's like at this point, there isn't, you know, no debt, you know, and I have a PhD. And from that experience, you know, I am just such a proponent of financial aid, scholarships, and the opportunities that it brings for me. Because even with the aid that I received, even with my PhD, and yes, you have to work, you have to apply for these things, seek those opportunities. They open up so many doors, and not just in terms of what you get because you have these alphabets and certificates, but the experiences and the knowledge and the experiences that I gained and have been able to evolve from engaging in these experiences. So when I think about who's on your team, you know, a lot of times when we think about investing in yourself and investing, I'm not sure if you ever heard that, invest in yourself. A lot of times people think about money, right? And when I think about investing in yourself, I think beyond just money, right? We're gonna get into that, and that's what we're talking about. But I think about your time. Because remember the things I shared before, there was time. See, sometimes we say, I don't like my situation. I don't like what's going on. I feel miserable. I feel trapped. I know what that's like. You know, life is not necessarily fair. Sometimes life gives us, I'll keep this corporate, Hades. and so, but we all have 24 hours in a day. And so what will we do at that time? And so as you're thinking about this juncture in your life, and you're thinking, oh, scholarship opportunities, this could be a way to fund something that I want to do next in my life. One of the things to think about beyond the money is, what am I doing with this time that I have? Next is access. Now, remember I mentioned, like, yes, people call me nerds. There was also a period I did not run with the best crowd. Who are you allowing access into your life? Because it's one thing to think about, oh, I want to, go to this boot camp, change careers, do these things, but that's just one piece of life, right? What are you thinking about? How am I investing my time? What am I doing with my time? But then who's in my space? Who in my circle? Who am I allowing access into my thinking, my hopes, my plans, my dreams? Because there are some people out there, sometimes it's the people that's really close to you, they can be dream killers, right? So think about, what am I doing to invest in who I am and who am I to be in this world? The next thing, as we think about, oh, I can't even spell today. I went T.A. Let's get the E, T-E, emotions, right? What are we doing with our emotional landscape? Oftentimes when we think about, again, with investing in ourselves, we think about money. But one thing that Martha Stewart shared, I want to share this quote. She said, once you realize you have identified a passion, invest in yourself. Figure out what you need to know, what kind of experience and expertise you need to develop to do the things that you feel in your heart that you will enjoy, and that will sustain you both mentally and economically. So what are the things that you are doing to sustain yourself emotionally? Because again, sometimes we think if I just do these tangible things, or if I get this credential, if I get this job, if I get this relationship, then that will be enough. If I just had X amount of money, then I'll be happy, right? Or you hear people say, like, you ever see the celebrities or the really, really super wealthy people and say, I had all this money and I wasn't happy. And you're like, well, try it on me, right? But it's very true. So what are you doing now, right? As you're thinking about this juncture in your life, what's this next step? What are you doing to pour into yourself and develop yourself and invest in yourself emotionally? And that links also to your time. And then the next one, which I skipped because clearly something happened with my studying around the years with spelling, with access and who's you're allowing to have access to yourself. And then the last one, why we're here, part of why we're here, money. So oftentimes this can be a really block for people. I know for myself, coming from a working middle class background, I've watched my family go from working poor, more middle class. I saw that, elevation in that way. But still, no matter what, no matter how many credentials you get, sometimes we can have different blocks and roadblocks in our thinking about money, and that can be such a hang up. And so I share part of my story is because sometimes people say, I don't want to take out, as I thought about planning my loan, I was strategic about that and what I was doing with that. But sometimes people don't think about pouring money into themselves as investing in themselves. They think it's something external. And I think part of that is because a lot of us have gone through free education, even though it's taxpayer funded, and we don't see the connection with pouring into ourselves. And that's what I want you to think as you consider Galvanize as a boot camp, as an experience for what you're looking to do in your life. I want you to see this not as, again, something external that I'm getting, so I can move forward in my career. Think about how is it that you are using money to invest in yourself. And so any educational experience that you have, this is a way to build and grow yourself, not just something that's from something external. I think about this quote by Vincent van Gogh. He said, if you hear a voice within you say, you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. You may hear a voice in the back of your head say, is this for me? Can I do this? I don't know if that's for me because of all maybe messages you've heard or maybe the images you've seen, right? So my invitation for you is, if you're hearing that voice, then by all means, go code, go, be the data scientist, go do those things until that voice is completely silenced. Invest in yourself.